What if the 10 plagues of Egypt were not random? What if the blood, the frogs, the darkness, and even the death of the firstborn were all sending Pharaoh the same message? Your gods cannot save you. Most people know the story. Israel was enslaved in Egypt. God sent Moses to Pharaoh with a command, "Let my people go." But Pharaoh refused. So God sent 10 devastating plagues across Egypt. But why these particular plagues? Why turn the Nile to blood? Why fill Egypt with frogs? Why cover the land in darkness? Were the plagues simply punishments? Or was God deliberately confronting the gods Egypt trusted? The Bible gives us an important clue. Before the final plague, God said, "I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord." That means the Exodus was not only a battle between Moses and Pharaoh. It was a public demonstration of who truly ruled creation. Egypt worshipped many gods. There were gods connected to the Nile, the sun, fertility, animals, healing, and protection. Pharaoh himself was also viewed as having divine authority. Egypt believed these spiritual powers protected the nation. But plague after plague exposed their helplessness. Now, we need to be careful. The Bible does not give us an official chart saying, plague number 1 defeated this god, and plague number 2 defeated that god. Egypt also had far more than 10 gods. Some connections are strong, others are educated guesses. But the overall message is unmistakable. The Lord alone is God. The first plague struck the Nile. The Nile was more than a river. It was Egypt's source of water, food, farming, and wealth. Without it, Egypt could not survive. The river was also treated as sacred and connected with divine power. Then Moses struck the water, and it turned to blood. The fish died, the river smelled. The Egyptians could not drink from it. The source Egypt trusted for life became a source of death. God was showing Pharaoh, the Nile does not sustain Egypt independently. I do. Then came the frogs. Frogs poured out of the river and entered homes, bedrooms, kitchens, and food containers. They were everywhere. Frogs may have challenged religious beliefs connected with fertility and childbirth, especially the frog-headed goddess Hecate. Something associated with life and blessing became an unbearable curse. Pharaoh's magicians even managed to produce more frogs, but Egypt did not need more frogs. It needed someone who could remove them. The magicians could imitate part of the sign, but they could not deliver anyone. False power can create a spectacle. Only God can save. Next came gnats, or possibly mosquitoes. The dust became swarms of tiny creatures that tormented people and animals. This time, Pharaoh's magicians could not copy the miracle. They admitted, this is the finger of God. The people who tried to compete with Moses were beginning to recognize that they were facing a power beyond them. Then came swarms of flies. But something different happened. The Egyptians suffered. While the Israelites living in Goshen were protected, this showed that the plagues were not random disasters. God could determine exactly where they fell. Pharaoh could command thousands of slaves, but he could not command one fly. Then Egypt's livestock were struck. Horses, donkeys, camels, cattle, and sheep became sick and died. Animals were essential to Egypt's economy, transport, and farming. Some animals were also treated as sacred. Yet Egypt's gods could not protect the animals connected with them. Meanwhile, Israel's livestock were spared. Then came painful boils. Moses threw soot into the air, and sores broke out on people and animals. Even Pharaoh's magicians could not stand before Moses because they were covered in boils. The men who represented Egypt's spiritual power could not even remain in the room. Egypt had gods and religious practices connected with healing, but none of them could provide relief. Then came hail. It was unlike any storm Egypt had experienced. Thunder shook the land, fire flashed through the sky, trees were shattered, crops were destroyed. People and animals left outside were struck. But before the storm arrived, God gave a warning. Anyone who believed his word could bring their servants and animals indoors. That detail matters. Even in judgment, God showed mercy. Some Egyptians listened and were protected. Others ignored the warning. Then came locusts. Whatever survived the hail was eaten. The fields disappeared beneath them. Plants were stripped bare. Egypt's food supply was devastated. Pharaoh's officials begged him to surrender. They asked, "Do you not yet realize that Egypt is ruined?" But Pharaoh's pride remained stronger than his concern for his people. Then came darkness. For 3 days, a darkness that could be felt covered Egypt. People could not see one another. They could barely move. But the Israelites had light where they lived. This may have been the clearest challenge of all. Egypt worshipped solar gods, especially Ra. The sun represented power, order, and divine authority. Pharaoh's position was closely connected with that belief. Then, at God's command, the sun disappeared. For 3 days, Egypt's great symbol of power gave no light. The message was clear. Ra does not control the sun. The Lord does. Then came the final and most terrible plague, the death of the firstborn. This judgment reached from Pharaoh's palace to the poorest household. God provided a way of escape. Each Israelite family was told to sacrifice a lamb and place its blood on the doorframe. When judgment passed through Egypt, the blood marked that home for protection. This became the first Passover. Israel was not saved because they were naturally better than the Egyptians. They were saved because they trusted God's provision. For Pharaoh, the plague destroyed the illusion of divine authority. He could not protect his people. He could not even protect his own household. The ruler, who had once ordered Hebrew sons to be killed, now experienced death within his own family. After this, Pharaoh finally allowed Israel to leave. So, did each plague target one Egyptian god? We cannot say that with complete certainty. The Bible does not match each plague with one named deity. But it clearly says God brought judgment against the gods of Egypt. The plagues exposed everything Egypt trusted. The Nile could not save them. Sacred animals could not save them. The sun could not save them. The magicians could not save them. Pharaoh could not save them. Only the Lord had authority over nature, life, and death. But this was not God being petty or spiteful. The plagues were not sent because God felt threatened by imaginary rivals. God was confronting oppression. For generations, the Israelites had suffered under slavery. Their sons had been thrown into the Nile. Their cries had risen to God. Pharaoh repeatedly rejected warnings and refused to release them. The plagues were acts of judgment against a violent empire, acts of deliverance for an enslaved people, and revelations of the true God. God repeatedly explained his purpose so that Egypt, Israel, and the nations would know that he is the Lord. The story also challenges us today. We may not bow before statues of Ra or worship the Nile, but people still place their deepest trust in created things. Money, career, status, power, relationships, appearance, intelligence, technology. These things may be useful, but they cannot save us. Anything we trust more than God can become an idol. Anything we believe we cannot live without can begin controlling us. The plagues ask every generation the same question. What are you trusting to save you? Eventually, everything created reveals its limits. Money can disappear, power can be lost, human strength fades, but God remains. And the Passover points toward an even greater rescue. Centuries later, Jesus celebrated Passover with his disciples. Then he went to the cross. The New Testament calls Jesus our Passover lamb. Just as the blood of the lamb marked Israel's homes for deliverance, the sacrifice of Jesus provides salvation from sin and death. The Exodus was not only about escaping Egypt. It pointed forward to Christ. Pharaoh enslaved bodies. Sin enslaves hearts. Moses led Israel out of Egypt. Jesus leads us out of sin and into life. So were the 10 plagues aimed at Egypt's gods? In the broad biblical sense, yes. They exposed the helplessness of Egypt's false gods and revealed the Lord's authority over all creation. But the message is bigger than matching 10 plagues with 10 names. The message is this: there is no river God cannot command, no darkness he cannot overcome, no empire he cannot humble, no captive he cannot deliver, and no false god that can stand before him. The 10 plagues were not random. They were a declaration. Egypt had many gods, but only one God had the power to save. If this helped you understand the Exodus differently, subscribe for more powerful questions, overlooked details, and life-changing truths from the Bible.